Right, good morning everybody. Rather than going straight into today's lesson, what I thought I'd do, because I did it with the children in school, I thought I'd go through the questions from yesterday's comprehension and then I'll move on to today's lesson. So what was the name of Rosie's teacher? Was Lila Greer. Okay, question 2. Why does Rosie peek in the trash? To find things for her engineer's stash. You'll have to apologise for my handwriting. I'm using a mouse. Where does Rosie build her gadgets and gizmos? Well, you could have had her room, the eaves, or the attic. So attic is A-double-T-I-C, no K on the end for attic. One of those funny words that does allow the curly K at the end of the word. Or you could have had the eaves, and eaves is E-A-V-E-S, okay? Or her room, as somebody decided to do in class today. Okay, name 2 inventions she creates. Well, she does 3 in the book. You could have had cheese hat. You could have had helium pants. And you could have even have had the heli cheese copter. So any of those, any 2 of those would have been fine. What did her great aunt used to do? Build planes. Now build is a funny word, so it's B-U-I-L-D. Don't worry if you didn't include the L or the U even. Build planes. Why did she think her heli cheese copter would flop? All of her other things have not been very good, or people have laughed at her other inventions. So people laughed at her inventions. Could have been an answer. It was made of trash. Could have been another answer. She just didn't think it would work. Would also be another answer. Okay, question 7. Think of a word the author uses to show she was surprised when her aunt hugged her. Now, this was a really tricky one because really you needed the story in front of you to see it. So I do apologise for this question, but it was just to see if anybody really remembered the story well. So baffled would have been an answer. Or perplexed. Both of those meant surprised. So you could have had this one. With number 8, putting them in the right order. Number 1 was already done for you. Number 2 is the Rosie makes a cheese hat to keep snakes away. Number 3, the aunt comes to stay. Number 4, that was to make the heli cheese copter. And then number 5 happens right at the end. So that was the order I was expecting, okay? Some people decided that they were going to put this before the great aunt came to stay because they were talking about the cheese hat. Okay, I would have allowed that as well. Okay, so those are the questions. Those were the questions from yesterday. So on to what we're doing today. So what I would do is have the story map in front of you while doing this video because it will help. Okay, don't try and do it afterwards. Try and do it while the video is going on because I'm going to talk about all the different things we need to include. So we're going to box up our story. So the story map, I've done most of it for you. What we're going to do is put in the few pictures and the few words we still need to do, and then we're going to think of some adjectives to go in there as well. Year 2s, you can even think of some adverbs that you might want to put at the start of your sections if you want to. Okay, I decided I was going to give some of you a completely blank story map. I decided that was a bit mean, so you're doing it this way. We're all doing it together. So here is the story map that you have in front of you. So we have the opening. What I want is for you to think of a way to start your story. Okay, so you could have once upon a time, or you could have a long time ago, or you could have anything at all really to go in there. I will talk about that in a minute. And then we've got Rosie Revere dreamed of being a great engineer. So we need a picture for engineer. And the one on the story map that I gave you, and actually it might be useful to have a story map with you as well, because then you can copy some of the pictures, was of the wrench. Okay, I do apologise for my writing in this. I'm using a mouse. So she lived in Blue River Creek. If you want to put she lived in a house or she lived in a flat, it's never mentioned in the story, but it's quite a good idea to put it in there as well. House was one of our tricky words in phonics, so I'm not going to bother putting it on there. You should be able to spell house by now. So she lived in a house in Blue River Creek. In the classroom, she was too shy to speak. So we need two pictures here. Parents, if you're watching this as well, this is what we do in class. Rather than writing the whole story into these boxes, what these are meant to be is these are meant to be visual clues that then the children can then write the story by themselves. So they know what's coming up next. They don't have to think of everything themselves. So for a classroom, I'm going to copy what I had on the original story map, which was just a board with like a pointer pointing to it. Okay, she was too shy to speak, so we're going to have a speech bubble with a cross through it. Okay. When no one was looking, she peeked in the trash. Now, peeked was one of the words that we looked at last week when it came to looking at the vocabulary. So it's a really good idea to put that one in. And I'm actually going to put it in a different colour, because that means that we're using story language, which is a really good idea. So peeked, peeked. If you can't read my writing, because it is appalling, have a look at the sheet that was in your book. Let's go back. So with that, when no one was looking, she peeked in the trash to find things for her engineer's stash. So we need looking. When no one could, or when no one could see. It doesn't have to be the same words as me. When no one was looking, she peeked in the trash. Trash is quite an easy word to spell. Engineer's stash. So I'm going to have a nice box here with lots of things sticking out of it, because that's what she has, her engineer's stash. In the attic at night, she made gizmos. Now I've put gizmos over here because we're going to put an adjective in there. Okay, there's a couple of other places we're going to put an adjective as well, but for now I'm going to leave that blank. The build-up, because we're just doing the pictures at the moment. When Rosie was small, so we can draw another little picture of Rosie here. When Rosie was small. Now, small is s-m. You could have put lit. You can change it. You can put tiny. You can put little. You can put young. You can put, you know, was a child. Doesn't matter. Small is s-m, and then it's the tricky word all, which we should all know by now. She made some helium pants and a cheese hat. So here we're going to draw a picture of a cheese hat. Okay. If I'm going too fast, pause the video. Do your picture and then play the video again. Okay, so we're going to have a hat here. I'm not going to do it the same as the one in the book. So we've got a hat, looks a bit like a flying saucer. Then we're going to have the cheese spray here. And then there was some kind of rotor blade on there as well. So cheese hat. Uncle Fred laughed and laughed and laughed until he cried. Rosie was embarrassed, so we now need a shocked Rosie face. A shocked Rosie face. She's obviously got a bit big as well. And she was embarrassed and she kept her dreams to herself. So dreams, I'm going to put in D-R-E-A-M. Oh, that's not going to let me write it there, so I'm going to have to move that. dreams, and then I'm going to move it back. She kept her dreams to herself. Problem. I've got another chance for a, kind of like an opening here. So one autumn day, Aunt Rose came and stayed and said what she built. Told her what she built. So Rose, we're going to put her name. She dreamed. We've already put dream, so we don't have to be of being able to fly. Now, fly is a bit of a funny word, so I'm going to put that. Oh, funny L, funny F. Fly, I'm going to put there. And I've actually put an exclamation mark in here. It might be quite a good idea for you to try and put that into your story. Rosie had an idea. She couldn't sleep and she worked all night. So here we need a picture for night. So I'm going to draw a moon and a star. She took the cheesecopter out to see if it could fly. So what you might want to do is a little arrow here. We've already written the word fly, but we might not know what that arrow means when we come to write it next week. So I'm going to put fly again. See if it could fly. She flipped the switch. So we need a switch here. And it flew for 1 second. So I'm just going to put an up arrow here. But then it crashed. So we're going to have an arrow and then a big explosion. It crashed. Rosie laughed and she laughed and she laughed. Oh no, she said. So we're missing this bit. What happened after this? So it's, oh no. Not again. I will not be a great engineer. So where's my engineer's sign? There's my... This is getting worse and worse, this writing, with a cross through it. Now, engineer's already written up here. I do not need to repeat it down here on the plan. She gave her a hug. So we want a picture of some hands hugging and said, well done, because she was really pleased, wasn't it? So well done, or hooray. So well done. The first attempt flew. So I'm going to write first like this. The first one flew. Right. I'm not going to go on to the next page. We're going to put the tricky words and things in, and we're going to put our adjectives in now. We've already got one of our words for story language. So let's think about our opening. You could use once upon a time. Okay. You could use a long time ago. You could say once there was, which is what I'm going to use. So I'm not going to use once upon a time. I'm going to use once there was. Now, once was one of our tricky words. So once there was. If you can think of a different way, there is T-H-E-R-E. Again, you can use your tricky word mat. Once there was. Was is W-A-S. Again, it's on your tricky word mat. That's why you've got them. So, once there was a little girl called Rosie Revere. Okay, I want to put little up here because little, we want to, that's the whole point of the opening, is to describe the character and the place as much as we possibly can. So we've got a little girl who wants to be an engineer. What kind of engineer does she want to be? A brilliant engineer, a great engineer, an amazing engineer? Put in a word that means that. Okay, so I'm going to choose great. But you can choose any other word that means the same. She lived in a house in Blue River Creek, okay? In Lila Greer's classroom. What was the classroom like? Was it a busy classroom? Was it a noisy classroom? Let's try and paint a picture for the reader. So I'm going to have noisy classroom. In the noisy classroom, Rosie Revere was too shy to speak. We don't need anything like that. When nobody was looking, she peeked in the trash to get some things for her engineer's stash. Again, we could come up with another word here if you wanted to. I'm going to leave it for the moment. In the attic. Now, she's by herself in the attic, okay? And the attic was, if you think about the story, it was full of stuff. So in the cluttered, which means there's lots and lots of things there. Or in the messy, you could have had. Only use cluttered if you understand exactly what it means. But cluttered means that there's lots and lots of things all over the place. But you could have had messy. In the messy attic, at night, she made some gizmos. What kind of gizmos? And we've already got great up here, so I can't use some great. You could have amazing, you could have wonderful, you could have brilliant, okay? But I'm going to use the word interesting. I think I'm doing this on purpose so you can't actually read my writing. Some interesting gadgets and gizmos. So that's it for the first part. Okay, build up then. When Rosie was small, okay, she made helium pants and a cheese hat to keep the snakes away. Helium pants. You could put another adjective in here if you want to. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm going to leave it blank, but if you put something in there, that would be brilliant. Okay. The cheddar cheese hat. Well, the cheese is actually the adjective here, and really so is the helium, because it's what kind of pants? They're helium pants. What kind of hat? A cheese hat. Uncle Fred laughed and laughed and laughed until he cried. Rosie was embarrassed and kept her dreams to herself. So actually, I haven't included any adjectives in here at all, because the build-up is the start of the story. Why the problem happens. Okay, so on an autumn day. So I want an adjective here. You could say the next week on an autumn day, or soon after, or years later, because it was when she was younger. I'm going to use years later. Years later. So when she's older, or when she was older. Years later. I'm waffling now. On an autumn day, Rose came and told her she used to build planes. Now, her great-great-aunt Rose. So we could, again, have another adjective to describe Rose. So her old or her ancient great-great-aunt Rose, because if you're great-great, you're going to be quite old. So let's put old in here. Anytime you have a new character in a story, it's a good idea to give them an adjective to describe them. And he told you what she built. She dreamed of being able to fly. Here we've got Rosie Revere had an idea. What kind of idea is it? Well, I haven't used brilliant yet, so I'm going to put brilliant in here. But you, again, try and think of your own words. Don't just copy everything I've done. What I don't want to do is, when I get your books back next week, is to read 30 stories that all have all of these words in. So try and use your own words. She couldn't sleep and she worked all night. She took the heli cheese copter out to fly. She flipped the switch and it flew for a second, but then it crashed. She flipped. We could talk about the colour of the switch here, because we haven't used any colours yet. So she flipped the red switch and it flied for a second, but then it crashed. Aunt Rose laughed and laughed and laughed. Knows I will not be a great engineer. She gave her a big hug, small hug, crushing hug, bear hug. She gave her a big hug. And said, well done. The first attempt flew. And what we haven't done actually here is included another full stop. So we can put a full stop in there. And actually we can probably put a full stop after dreams here. So that is it for the first part. So if you haven't gone ahead and put your adjectives in and things, pause the video now, fill in this side of the sheet, and then turn it over for the next page. Okay, so pause now. Okay, so you've finished this bit. You've got your own words in there. Hopefully they're not all the same as mine. Let's have a look at the next part. Okay, so let's get my black pen back out again. So we've got Rose and Rosie. So we're drawing a picture. I'm getting quite good at drawing Rose and Rosie quite quick now. Rose is different to Rosie because she's got the rollers in her hair. And then we've got Rose here. Like, well, that's a horrible picture of Rose. Right. Rose and Rosie worked until the sun went down. So we've got the word sun here, which means we're going to need a sun. Okay. Then Rosie had a smile from ear to ear. So we're going to, ear is a tricky sound. So it might be useful to put the word ear in. We've got Rosie again. Rosie had a smile from ear to ear, so we want a really big smile. And we don't need to say big because that's what ear to ear means. She was going to be a good engineer. So we could have good here, or you could have another word that means the same as good. Okay, she was going to be you could have a clever engineer. I'm going to stick good in there, keep it simple. But you could come up with your own. And actually, that word really should be in blue because it's an adjective. Okay, let's do that bit again. Aunt Rose and Rosie worked all day, worked until the sun went down. Okay, don't need to write the word down, we've got a down arrow. Rosie had a smile from ear to ear. She was going to be a good engineer. So let's put our engineer symbol in again. Okay, last bit. In the classroom at Blue River Creek, the children made gadgets and gizmos. They all cheered, but none as proudly as Rosie Revere. So year twos, here's an adverb. Okay. So, classroom. I'm going to put the same picture in as I had before. In Blue River Creek. All the children. So children, again, year twos, this is one of your tricky words. We haven't come across it yet. They made gadgets and gizmos. So you can come up with any kind of picture here. I'm going to try and remember some of the things they had in the book. So there was the hat, which had all the mirrors on it. You can choose whatever you want. You can design your own gadgets and gizmos here. It's fine. You don't have to do it as long as you understand what it means. And then the gizmo, there was the tree trunk that was the scooter. But there was the mobile disco in there as well, so you could put that in there. They all cheered. But none as proudly as Rosie Revere. So we've got our last Rosie picture here. And she's going to have a great big smile on her face with her hair coming down. So, in the classroom at Blue River Creek, the children, okay, we want to come up with an adjective to describe the children. So they could be excited children, they could be hardworking children. It's completely up to you here. I'm going to have I'm going to have excited. And they made gadgets and gizmos. So they made strange gadgets and we've had interesting already, I think. Let's have a look at what we've had so far. We've had interesting gizmos, we've had brilliant, we've had great, we've and strange and wonderful. Again, you can come up with your own words. And they all cheered, but none so proudly as Rosie Revere. So I'm actually going to put I'm going to think of another adverb. How could you cheer? Remember, the adverb describes the verb. So did they cheer noisily? Did they cheer loudly? Did they cheer happily? Okay, I'm going to put happily, and I'm doing it in a different colour to show you that it's an adverb. So year twos, try and think of something to put in there. Year ones, don't worry. Okay, now you might want to put some other adverbs in. You might want to go back here and say, and then she flipped the switch and surprisingly it flew, but then it crashed. Okay, amazingly. Okay, unfortunately it crashed. Okay, so it's up to you where you put them in. Try and challenge yourself though. Don't just do what I'm asking you to do. Think, right, what could I do all the time? What could I do to make this better? Okay, right, that's it. You need to keep this because this story map you will need for all your writing next week. Okay, we are going to make a change. We're going to make some changes. We're not actually going to write this exact story. Okay, we're going to make a few changes to it, and I'm going to show you how you're going to do that this week or next week. But for now, you need to keep this because this will form the basis of our writing for the whole of next week, because that's pretty much what we're doing all of next week. And then we're going to leave Rosie Revere for a bit and do something else. Okay, so make sure you filled in this story map as best you can. If you think you want to have a go of doing your own, there is a blank one ready to print out, and you can do completely your own one. But I suggest you stick with this one for now. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing your writing when it finishes next week.